Hello everybody, welcome back to Waffles RC. This week we are getting started on a new project. I have wanted to build another one of these for quite a while. And if you watched the live, I gave you a little hint that it was another one of these. This was the second RC that I ever made from, actually, hold on a second. I gotta think now. This right here was the first RC that I ever fabricated a frame for. So all the other RCs that you've seen built on this channel were essentially spawned by this. Now, I absolutely love this truck. I made some mistakes because it was the first one that I ever built, at least frame-wise. So we are going to learn from the mistakes of this truck, even though this thing is about 100% now, even though I break it all the time. But learning from our mistakes, we're going to start over and build another big old mud truck. So with that truck, that was actually the second frame that I made because the drop chassis, basically all the tube work and everything, I didn't do it long enough or tall enough essentially to get all the control arms down far enough. So I've learned from that. But what body are we going to run? Because I already have the F250, and if you're thinking the F450, no, I'm not doing the F450. But if you join me on a little magical adventure, I have an overly dramatic video footage of how I came to get the new body. Got what I asked for? That's right. We have the Sen Racing Sicario or Sicario or however you want to pronounce it. We have this body. So I know the video was a little overly dramatic, but I thought it was a hilarious way to tell you guys of how I came to get this body. Now, that was all completely fake, obviously, but nonetheless, we have a body. I did reach out to Sen Racing when this thing first dropped asking for a body, but apparently my channel's not big enough, or they don't like the fact that I only wanted the body and not, anything else of their frame, drivetrain, none of that, because I'm putting all different stuff under it. I went with the gray one because of the fact that I like the gray one, and the other mud truck has a blue frame, so didn't want the colors to clash. So we're going to make mud truck frame for this thing, but we have to start off at the basics. So we need to start basics with making just the regular frame for it, and we need our wheelbase. And I'm not going to draw on this table again. So let me find some cardboard and we'll mark where I want the wheelbase and then start making a frame from there. So the way that I start a fresh build like this, as long as I have the body, I mark where I want my front wheels, where I want my back wheels, and then also where I want the end of the frame at the front and the back. And then I also do a kick down so the frame comes up just like a normal frame on a normal truck. I mark where I want that kick down, how far back I want it to go so it can kick up, and do the same in the back there. So let's mark all that, shall we? Okay, so as you can see, this is just how I do it for me. I normally wouldn't even write this stuff, but I did it for you guys. So I have my end frame mark, front wheel, level out with the front, then a kick up to come up to there. Then we have our other kick up to go up to the level back here, rear wheel, end of frame. And as you saw with all of that, Not a single tape measure was used. And I do that on purpose. Not very good with a tape measure, as most of you know. So, because of that, I just guess my way through. It makes it easier for me, at least. Now, if you want to use a tape measure to find all the perfect angles and get everything absolutely perfectly straight, good. That is absolutely good. You do what you need to do to make your RC build yours. Now me, I guess. What we're going to do now is put this in a safe space so that it doesn't get absolutely destroyed when I'm cutting all this metal. Then hope that this cardboard doesn't catch on fire. That's, a good goal to have, basically. And I'm going to start cutting out a frame for this thing. So the main frame that I use, like I've said many times, is 1/2" square stock. It's very robust and it's worked really well on all of my RC builds. That one, the other mud truck, same basic frame. So the way that I'm making this is I'm making a basic frame, then all the drop chassis stuff will be with the bar work that brings it all down. But I want a main frame on the truck. And the reason for that is that's how they build mud trucks in real life. They still have a stock frame on them. They just add all the stuff underneath them. That is in most cases. Other people build a full tube chassis, but if you actually look at most mud trucks, it's a stock frame with tubes welded to it. So that's what we're gonna do. So let me start cutting and I'll show you what I came up with. There we are with our very first frame rail. As you can see, things are relatively close to where I put them. Certainly doesn't help not using a tape measure, but this is what we come up with. So just very standard, basic, nothing super intricate or crazy yet. But if we put it in here like so, without my glove there, it's still hot, so I'm not putting it on the body. It clears the wheel wells very nicely, sits down here for electronics and other fun stuff. Well, battery. And so yeah. So there's that. That'll catch on fire probably. So now all I'm going to do is copy this. The way I'm going to just copy this is just lay another piece over and make sure I cut it where I cut this one, so that way they match. So let's get a time lapse going and you'll see how this essentially got created, minus the guesswork and having to do it 3 times. Two frame rails close enough to being exactly like each other. Cut the ends off so we are at the right length. And just want to say thank you to whoever gave me the idea or mentioned the idea of just cutting a wedge rather than a bunch of different parts and angles and all. It has made this so much faster, so much easier. You saw in the time lapse how quickly it can go. Thank you to whoever that was. And the reason why I use the clamps is so that everything stays level with each other as I tack weld it. Now, what I have to do is figure out the width that I want the chassis, which I have shown this many a times before, but it's good to know no matter what. When I'm going for the width of the chassis, I take whatever axles I'm going to be using, which in this case are these AR60s knockoffs, of course. I'm using these and I do the width of the frame to the inside and inside of where the shock mounts are going to be. So that way the shocks sit on the outside of the frame and then land right inside of here. So my total width of my frame is going to be whatever this measurement from right here to right here on the inside is. And just so everybody knows the preparation that goes into this, I have been collecting parts for this truck in hopes that I could find a body. but I needed all the parts still. The last piece was the body and making the frame. So I've had most of these parts for this. Had the tires for it since Christmas. I've had these for probably 2 months, and I've just been slowly collecting parts because luckily I have one to go off of what parts I need. And the reason why I'm running these is because I ran these exact axles in that mud truck, and they have taken every bit of abuse that thing can throw at it. And this one's going to be exactly the same. So, why mess with a good thing? They're knockoffs, but they handle the power and all the abuse that truck has. So I'm going to keep running them. I'm going to paint these though, because don't need red on there, because there will not be red on this truck. I'm going to cut this piece to make the whole frame a frame. And then we get to start working on the fun bits, all the tubes. That's what I'm excited for. So in a snap, I'm not even going to do the snap. I suck at it every time. So now, are you really building an RC car if you're not using a hammer? I don't know. I've found that hammers, at least with my RCs, are one of my most favorite tools. There we go. So from learning from my mistakes on the last one, what I'm going to do differently is now I have the frame, is I'm going to make the mounts for the body. So that way I can have the body mounted in here, so that way I can have the frame mounted in here and then start building off of that. Because that was why with the other one, I had to make 2 frames because I did it wrong. So I'm going to try a different way, a different approach, and see if it works. And then we will I'm just gonna make some quick body mounts and see how it all turns out. And there we go. We got our body pins in. Still have to widen the holes a little bit more because I was not perfectly centered, but here is our frame inside of our Sen Racing body. Now I get to do the fun stuff, but that's going to be tomorrow because, well, you'll see this later, but I'm going on a podcast and I need to figure out how to work my computer. So we'll get started on this, on the fun tubing stuff tomorrow. All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to a windy day. We're continuing on now to the fun part, but as I've just discovered by working off camera, the difficult part where I messed up on the first mud truck. So I'm trying to do things different. So I'll walk you through exactly what I'm attempting to do. And yes, it involves a tape measure, unfortunately. So what I'm attempting to do here is figuring out how big the cage at the bottom of the frame has to be for our links to mount to. I need to figure out, I know the width, I need to know the length, which is why the axles are out. I have them about where the wheelbase is going to be. And so now I'm measuring for that length. Once I figure out the length, once again, I know the width, it's the width of the frame. Then after that, I have to figure out the height, which comes down to shocks and tires. But let's start writing down my dimensions before getting a little too crazy on this thing. So, like I said, I know the width, which is 4 inches. That is the width of the frame that is in there. And yes, this is almost completely gone. So what am I going to do? I'm going to do it again. 4 inches wide in E. So now our length, purely by guesstimation of where these things should be. So I'm going to say about 5.5. So now I need to figure out how high I need to make it, which involves that. And standing this up while it's windy and the wind wants to blow it away. So here's hoping. Okay, so long and short of it, after messing around with this thing for a little bit, is I am going to cheat. And by cheat, I mean I want this truck to be a little taller than that truck. Yeah, than that truck. So based on that, I have the same size tires as that, same axles as that. I have different shocks, but I want it to be a bit taller. So the cage on that one is 2 inches from the frame down. This one, I have the frame tucked up a little bit more, so I have to compensate for that because that one is down about a 1/2 inch. So the cage on this one is going to be 3.5 inches tall, essentially, from the bottom of the frame, 3.5 inches down. And hopefully that'll give me the height that I need. So here is the beginning stages of the cage. Now remember, it's not pretty, it's not perfect, looks awkward, but you need to start from somewhere, and this is where we have to start. Now I have this made. Now I have to figure out where on this frame this needs to go, so that way the links are all correct for the wheelbase of the truck. So let me figure that out real quick and go from there. Okay, so this is all just guesswork, so please keep that in mind before commenting that I'm doing something wrong. But guesstimation wise, that's about where I need. Now the axles are still going to go lower than where they are right now because that's just dead even. That's not where it's going to be. I know this just looks like I made an RC platform, which is essentially what it is. But I need to add extra bars in there and all sorts of fun stuff. And then I still have upper links to make for the back, or for both the axles, and then mount the coilovers to get final ride height. But I have now located where I want this, so I'm going to weld that on and move on to the next step while the camera waves around because it's so windy out. I'm really hoping you can hear anything that I'm saying because of this wind, so if not, I'll put subtitles down to help you if that microphone's not working because of the wind. Just like that. Let's get to welding. Well, as per usual for me, I got carried away. Got the lower mounts mounted onto here for the lower control arms. But now I need mounts for the upper control arms. So what I'm going to do is my favorite part of a mud truck build, even though I've only done one. So this is now number 2, is basically I'm just going to start adding bars. So the reason for adding the bars is 1, I need spots to mount the upper control arms. 2, it looks cool, honestly. And we got to strengthen everything up because remember, this is not going to be a crawler by any means. So I'm just going to start adding bars until I get enough in here to where it looks good. And I have a spot to mount my upper links, and then we'll get onto the shocks. Then once that's done, then we're just going to add bars for looks, purely aesthetic. Here's the chassis. You notice from the time lapse, this is a bit different right here, and that's because the links were too short and the pinion angle was too wrong. So had to change that. Did the backs. So now we have links and axles that do stuff. And just like always, this is just mocked up right now. I have to do a final alignment once everything is for sure in its place. So if you saw bad pinion angles, it'll probably get worse, but we will overcome that and do what we have to do. But next step is going to be our shocks. That's right. We need the coilovers on here so we can make tabs for them to hang. And as you can probably tell, let's all say it at the same time, they are wrong. 130s. That's right. Got 130s. Still can't find the 150s, but got 130s. Actually, I lied. I found 150s, but they're huge, and it wouldn't look right on this. So let's make some tabs, get some coilovers on this thing, get the body on it, and see what it looks like. And there it is, on its own weight, doing its own thing. Quite happy with it. Once again, still very bare, but let's see what it looks like with the body on. Still gotta fix that. Oh yeah, that is gonna be a tall truck. Yes sir, Bob, it sure is. But we look down here, just like that. Now imagine there's still a lot of stuff that's gotta go into this thing. But that's a tall truck. I love it. I wanted it taller. I certainly got it taller. Okay, next step. You know what? Let's put wheels and tires together because everything else is superficial as of right now. I know I say it all the time. I don't think you're ready for this. That's right, just like the original, it is a dually. Now I know the front is too far forward, but luckily I made adjustments for that. Nothing's really squared up and lined up, at least axle wise, but once again, still have to do an alignment. So now I am just going to hammer down and add a bunch of bars because right now it just looks a little too bare. So let's just hammer out a whole mess of bars and welding and cutting and all sorts of fun stuff. There are a bunch of bars just for bars' sake. So now there's one last thing I need to do before calling it a wrap on this thing for this weekend. And let me know down in the comments if you saw the little sneaky thing that I put in there because I could, and I thought it was quite clever and funny. So what we're going to do now lastly is transfer case. This is the same style transfer case that's in the other mud truck. It's held up. Have never had an issue with it, so I'm gonna run the same one. We make a bracket and get it mounted in here with some drive shafts and hope it all works. I'm sure it will. I keep saying that, but when you're custom fabbing these things, it is all hoping that it works, especially when you don't use tape measures very much. So let's get this in and get done for the weekend. And there is the transfer case. As you can see, it is very braced up. Got bracing down in the bottom. Just all the bracing all over the place because I can. Let's get the body on this thing and see what it really looks like now. You know, I'm tired of fighting this thing. Alright, looks like I'm still gonna fight this thing. Roger. Sorry about the loud noise. I mean, you can't tell me that doesn't look mean. I am so happy with this thing right now. Probably still going to add more bars in here just, well, because I can. The front's very busy. The back isn't, so I may add some back there. That's going to do it for this week. We got wires everywhere. Got really far on this thing. Don't have money for the motor yet, so that's not here yet. And the transmission, well, I have the transmission, but I'm out of time. It's the end of the weekend. Spent a lot of time on this thing, made a lot of really good progress. I'm happy with how it's coming out. The drive shafts are a bit short, I guess, on the length, and so I'm gonna have to get longer ones. I just can't get over it. I've been wanting to build another one of these for a while, and it shows. So thank you all for watching. Thank you all for subscribing. If you'd like some merch, we do have merch. Plug myself. Got hats, shirts, all sorts of stuff. If you're going to be, well, when this video comes out, if you're going to be at RC Fest up at Folsom Lake tomorrow, please come and say hi. The plan that I have is I'm going to be there all day Saturday. I'm also going to bring all my spare parts and some tools and stuff. And so when I'm taking a break, basically, I'm going to offer some free repairs. If I see a kid that broke a link or a link end or something, and that's the end of their day and they're all, you know, sad and disappointed that they have to go home, just stop by and or come and find me, and we'll try and get something worked out to get it all fixed up for you guys. If anybody is going to be there, if you'd like to come and help, that would be greatly appreciated. It is free to get in. I'll put the link down in the description, even though when this video comes out, it's going to be tomorrow. But you should have seen a YouTube short of me announcing all of this as well. So yeah, I think that's all for announcements. So thank you again very much for everybody watching, and we will see you next week. Not working on this because I'll be at RC Fest. So you'll get a bunch of footage from RC Fest, and I'm gonna bring this even though I can't drive it. So thank you all very much.